With the Toronto Maple Leafs firing their head coach Sheldon Keefe earlier today, there is a new job opening for the Leafs head coach, and we're going to dive into some of the front runners in this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before we get into it, we got to say that 87% of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you're looking for a place for daily Leafs content, daily NHL content, you don't want to miss out on anything, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button. But with that said, let's get right into the first topic of the video today, which is the front runners to be the next coach of the Maple Leafs. And the first person we're going to talk about today is Craig Berube right now. And as you can see here, Craig Berube is the odds-on favorite out of the gates to replace Sheldon Keefe as the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And as they say here, he ticks every box imaginable in terms of what Shanahan and Leafs GM Brad Living likely desire in a head coach. Obviously, he has lengthy experience as a tough-as-nails player, so that could generate to maybe some vocal points behind the bench by maybe holding some players accountable that way. And if we look at his record here, obviously, he won the Stanley Cup championship with the St. Louis Blues back when he stepped in as head coach back in 18-19 when St. Louis went on that big old great run back then with Binnington really showing out for them. And since then, he lost in round one twice, lost in round two, and then was out of the playoffs in 22-23, and then was relieved of his duties, I believe, earlier this season. And Mark, I mean, Craig Berube to me is the one who stands out to a lot of people. And I think it's just because he's the complete opposite of what Sheldon Keefe was.
No, absolutely. That's such a funny way to put it. And Leafs fans really, really want this guy. He's their number one. So not only is he the favorite to land this job, I think he would be the fans' favorite to land this job. But like you say, Craig Berube, he was a tough as nails player, and he's kind of that way as a coach as well. He's kind of been known to get the most out of some of his players that aren't exactly superstars. You look at the Leafs roster, they have some superstars. And back in 2019, when Berube won the cup with the St. Louis Blues, we got to remember they were the bottom team in the league that year, somehow clawed it all the way back, easily made the playoffs, and then won the cup. But since then, maybe the reason why he hasn't had the most success is because some of his better players from that run have left. You think of Tarasenko, he was an absolute star there. He's been on a few teams since then. Same with Ryan O'Reilly, the man who won the Conn Smythe that year. He's gone on to some other teams as well. And Jordan Binnington, was kind of just one of those miracle runs that we've seen goalies do in the past, kind of like with, Antti Niemi, Corey Crawford, Matt Murray, guys like that. Jordan Binnington is just another one of those kind of guys. But Berube kind of proved that, sure, he can have some really good players on his roster, but he can get the most out of some of these guys. And he had some great defensemen on that team as well, who really, really carried. And maybe that's what the Leafs are missing here. In no way am I saying, look, this was for the Leafs to fire Sheldon Keefe. It was all Sheldon Keefe's fault. I mean, it was definitely overdue for him to be fired. But Craig Berube, I think, is just an amazing candidate to take over for this role.
Yeah, definitely. And if you look at these two teams, they're kind of eerily similar. Like, you have the old vet like Ryan O'Reilly, you have John Tavares, you have Tarasenko, that kind of lines up with William Nylander. I mean, their teams are kind of eerily similar, and the kind of position they're in now is kind of similar as well. Obviously, the Leafs aren't bottom of the league, but when you're bringing in a new face like Craig Berube, who is a completely different style of coach from Sheldon Keefe, it's really going to help the team out because what the fans and what the media have been wanting here in Toronto is a coach who is hard-nosed and, like you said, is tough as nails, and a guy who's going to hold their top players accountable. We don't care that you had 99 points last season. If you're not playing good right now, then something needs to change. And I think that's what Craig Berube brings to the table for this Toronto Maple Leafs team. And I really think that this will be the guy behind the bench next year because I think this is the exact type of coach that the Toronto Maple Leafs team needs. But there are some other candidates here. And the second one we're going to talk about is Gerard Gallant. And they say here, If it's truly experienced, Shanahan and Treliving want, then they could do a lot worse than Gallant. An NHL lifer with 17 seasons coaching in the league and a Jack Adams Award, Gallant has seen a lot. He's gotten close to a Stanley Cup with Vegas in 2018, and his most recent stint with the Rangers, Gallant became the first coach in franchise history to guide the team to back-to-back 100-point seasons. And if we take a look at Gallant's record here, he hasn't won a Stanley Cup as a coach, but has coached some great teams. Like they say here, in the 17-18 season, he lost in the finals with the Vegas Golden Knights. Then he also won 2 QMJHL championships, which does matter when you're looking at a coach to have won championships in previous leagues. And then the last 2 seasons with the Rangers, he lost in the third round and lost in the first round. But Gerard Gallant is one that kind of interests me a little bit here, Mark. I think that, like they say here, he has the experience. He has 17 years experience as an NHL head coach. And that means a lot because he knows what he's talking about. He knows what systems work against which teams. And I really do think that really does help the Toronto Maple Leafs out.
No, 100%. Like you said, he's such a successful coach. He has easily over a 500 record as a head coach, won that Jack Adams trophy, and was so close to winning the Stanley Cup. So I know Berube has that championship. He has the Stanley Cup ring, and that's what will attract Leafs fans. But we can't forget with Gallant, like he has gotten so far in the playoffs with teams that weren't exactly amazing. So he's another coach who really can get a lot out of any of his players. Think back to that team that made the Stanley Cup final, the Vegas team. I mean, who was their superstars then? It was Marchessault, Carlson, Riley Smith. It was nuts who were the guys who were doing it all for them. He can get anything out of his players. Add the core 4 of the Leafs, well, or at least the remaining players of the core 4 that will still be on the Leafs. If he can get even more out of them in the playoffs too, they are destined for success with him. Sheldon Keefe kind of came in without a huge resume, right? And the last time the Leafs brought in a coach with a very esteemed resume, it was Mike Babcock, and we all know how that went. So it's kind of, you can't say one way is the better way to go, look, this guy has been with some of our youthful players before when they were in junior, or hey, let's bring in a Stanley Cup winning coach. But Gallant is a proven winner. It doesn't matter how he's done it. He's always got it done. I know he doesn't have that Stanley Cup, but how insane is it that he's the first coach in Rangers history to get back-to-back 100-point seasons? That just shows it doesn't show more how good Gallant is. Maybe it shows how bad the Rangers have been in their entire 100-year history, whatever it's been. But Gallant, he might not be the favorite like Berube is, but I almost think he would be a better fit just because he is just a proven winner, and I think that's what the Leafs need because that is not what Keefe was.
Yeah, definitely. And with Gerard Gallant, I mean, we just seen him do it with a star-studded roster in New York by, like you said, getting back-to-back 100-point seasons. And when you look at these teams, I mean, he's had guys like Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, Adam Fox, and has coached these guys to be better players. So by bringing him into this Leafs roster, I'm almost 100% certain that he would coach Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares to be better players in the league, which should excite a lot of Toronto Maple Leafs fans. I think just a new face in general is going to get a lot of Leafs fans excited. But when you look at Gerard Gallant, I mean, he brought an expansion team to the Stanley Cup Finals. So that's nothing to glance an eye at. They could have easily won the Cup that year. So, I mean, that's some big experience, some big, deep playoff run experience in a coach that this Toronto Maple Leafs team desperately needs. But there is another guy we're going to talk about today, and that is Bruce Boudreau. Bruce, there it is. He says the sentimental choice is that Bruce spent parts of 7 seasons as Leafs forward and understands what winning in the market means to the city and its fan base. He's only ever been head coach in the NHL and has done so for 15 seasons with 4 teams. And obviously they say, who doesn't love Boudreau's uplifting approach to coaching and man management? I mean, that's why he's one of the most loved coaches in the NHL. And if you look at his record here, obviously was with the Capitals, the Ducks, the Wild, and recently the Canucks. He hasn't won a Stanley Cup, but went to the 3rd round with the Anaheim Ducks back in the 14-15 season, and has made it to the playoffs in most of his seasons as a head coach. Obviously, if you're looking for a Stanley Cup ring on your new head coach, Bruce Boudreau isn't the guy who's going to fit your bill. But if you're looking for a fun head coach and some great, post game comments, Bruce is your guy. And I think, like they say here in this article, his uplifting approach to coaching, I think, could really help this team out. I know that Sheldon Keefe kind of had this. We've seen the clip go viral with him saying, let's go out there and have fun in a Game 7 situation. But I think Bruce has a completely different coaching style than Sheldon Keefe, and I really do like this fit for Bruce Boudreau with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
No, 100%. I think a big thing to take in with Boudreau here is that he coaches with emotion. And I'm not saying that Sheldon Keefe didn't have emotion, but a lot of times Keefe let his emotions get the best of him and he got too angry and then the players got upset and it just wasn't a great fit at all. It wasn't a well-oiled machine. With Boudreau, he can obviously get very upset. I've never seen someone use more curse words per sentence in my entire life than Bruce. There it is. But we've seen it when he was in Vancouver and back when he was in Washington. He can get emotional in other ways too that can really spark a team. Seeing him, tear up on the bench when he was in Vancouver, I think that really helped the Canucks kind of turn this around. But how they were supposed to be a really good team with some of their star players. They don't necessarily have a huge core four, but they kind of have a core four in Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, and Brock Besser, who I know they have a new coach now, but seeing him get all emotional sparked them. Maybe the same thing can happen for the Leafs. Seeing Boudreau come in, he can be overwhelmingly happy. He can get angry at the right times as well. I think that can spark them in the right way. Do I think this is going to happen? I honestly don't. I don't see Boudreau becoming the head coach of the Leafs. I know he spent a lot of time there as a player. And for the Leafs fans who are old enough to remember him as a player, they have great memories. It would be the heartfelt one, but I just don't see it as being the realistic one.
Yeah, I want to see Boudreau behind the Leafs bench. I really do. But like you said, it's probably not going to happen. But to your point, I think Bruce Boudreau could be a great coach for this team because, players love to play for this guy. They love to play for Boudreau. And if you bring him into this Leafs team and the Leafs team wants to win for your coach, that might just be enough of a change to push them out of the first round. And I think that he would be a great coach on this team. Do I see it happening over a Gerard Gallant or Craig Berube? Not really, but it is a big possibility that we could see Bruce Boudreau behind the bench because I know we want to see it. Leafs fans want to see it. So hopefully it does happen. But there is one final person we're going to talk about today, and that is John Gruden, who is currently the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Toronto Marlies head coach. Sorry, he said, in the past, we've seen a lot of promotion within the Toronto Maple Leafs system coming up from the AHL to the NHL in coaching in that sort of way. And he was an assistant coach in the NHL for the Bruins during their record-setting season back in 22-23. And they say with a roster lacking high-end talent, Gruden learned the Leafs organization got the Marlies back into the playoffs this season. Behind the scenes, many Marlies and the organization itself felt Gruden's hardened approach was needed and worked wonders to push players towards success. So when we're talking about John Gruden, we're going to look at his stats right here. Obviously, we see here he was assistant coach for 5 straight seasons in the NHL, and then was the head coach of the Marlies this season, where they had a 34-26 record with 12 overtime losses. But like they said here, it's kind of comparable to the Craig Berube situation. He's a hardened coach. He's not going to take it easy on his players if they're not performing as expected. So this is a reason why I think that this could happen. But the main reason I think this could really happen is because we know that the Toronto Maple Leafs promote within. They do it very often. They promote from the ECHL to the AHL, and they promote from the AHL to the NHL. So I don't know if this was just Kyle Dubas is a way of doing things, but maybe Brad Treliving looks at John Gruden. I'm sure they're going to sit down and talk about it and see if he's ready to jump to the NHL level. But if you can't get a guy like Craig Berube or Gerard Gallant, I think John Gruden is the perfect fall guy.
No, 100%. And it's funny too, because I think a lot of Leafs fans will be against this one because it's the same kind of path that Sheldon Keefe took. And I know a lot of coaches have come up from the AHL and been very successful in the NHL, but the recent ones I can think of that at least involve the Leafs organization haven't exactly been great. Keefe was a great regular season coach. I'm not going to deny that. He did some great things. Did he fully have the locker room at all times? Maybe, maybe not. You think of DJ Smith, who came from the same organization, went to Ottawa. That ended terribly as well. So I don't know if John Gruden's the right guy here. I thought John Gruden was a football coach. I don't know what's going on with that. But either way, I don't know if this is the best approach. I like what you said about, was that the Kyle Dubas way, or will Tree Living kind of go with that as well? If you look at Tree Living's kind of managerial career so far with the Coyotes and then the Flames, he has had to deal with a lot of coaching changes. And it's interesting because he's never really done a great job of finding the right next coach. With the Flames, he did get Daryl Sutter. Is Daryl Sutter available for the Leafs? He's kind of a hard-nosed coach with a couple Stanley Cup rings and a well above 500 coaching record. But I don't know. I don't know if Tree Living will want to look at, the minors, I guess we can say here, and go with Gruden. It's not an awful choice, but I don't think Leafs fans will want it. They want kind of a change from the Keefe path. And I know he has a very different style of coaching than Keefe, but the fact that he was with the Bruins makes me think maybe he's just doing this to infiltrate the Leafs organization and we'll try to bring them to the bottom. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting carried away here, but I don't think Gruden is the best fit out of the available candidates.
Yeah, look, like, we've seen this not work. Recently, we just fired a guy who we did this exact same method for, and he couldn't get us out of the first round. So why do we test doing this again by potentially, ruining our core four's prime of their career by bringing in a coach who has no head coaching experience in the NHL? Yes, John Gruden is a great coach, but to bring him into this Maple Leafs team as a new head coach, his first time head coaching the NHL in a market like Toronto, is just going to eat this guy alive. And I really don't think that this happens. I really do think that, Craig Berube, Gerard Gallant, Bruce Boudreau, guys who have been proven to be great coaches in the NHL, deserve this more than John Gruden. Yes, I know he's worked his way up from assistant coach to now head coach in the AHL, but he's only coached one season in the AHL as a head coach, and I don't think right now he has the experience as a head coach to coach this Toronto Maple Leafs team. But we want to hear from you guys down below in the comment section. Who do you think the next coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs is going to be? Let us know down below. We're going to get everybody's favorite topic here on the channel, which is comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to Paul. Paul says the Flames deal would be better without giving up Minton. I think that takes from a fair trade to a one-sided win for the Flames. And obviously, if you're trading for Rasmus Andersson and Jacob Markstrom, our regional Flames expert is going to say you need some prospect quality in there.
No, 100%. I think that proposed trade was a little bit one-sided. It did look like a home run for the Flames. Personally, I'd take that in a heartbeat. I'll try and sell Jacob Markstrom here. Look, he's a proven goalie. Rasmus Andersson is a very good playmaker. He had a bit of an offseason, but I mean, who didn't on the Flames? So I don't think that trade was fully fair. It would be more fair if Minton wasn't involved, but from the Flames side, I think they'd rather have a prospect than maybe Robertson. I mean, the Flames would grab that and run if that was the actual case, if they're trying to escape the rebuild. But I do like that comment a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people value retention salary a lot. Like 25% retained is not going to get you a Fraser Minton. It's just not going to happen. But, we want to hear your guys' thoughts on that trade down below as well, because that was a very interesting one that I thought was the one that could happen if they do decide to go trade Mitch Marner. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road for 3,500 subscribers. So if you're new to the channel or you watch us all the time and you're not subscribed, make sure down below and hit that subscribe button and leave a comment while you're down there. You might be featured on the next comment of the day. And if you want to check out the video we did earlier talking about the firing of head coach Sheldon Keefe, it'll be popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host, Casey, alongside my co-host, Mark Griffith. We'll catch you in the next.